So this is what happens when we've got variables on both sides. Now, a lot of people, they get the 1 steps, they get the 2-step ones, and they kind of feel really comfortable with those. And then they see something like this, and they absolutely panic because there's X's all over the place, okay? Please don't worry, because it only takes 1 step to turn this into the things that we just did, okay? And then you should feel happier. So the first thing you're going to look for is where your variables are. So here we've got, I'm going to just circle them so you can see, we've got a 6x here and an x there, okay? And it does help if you do that, okay? If you just kind of circle them off or something in another colour so you can see them, it just helps them stand out a bit. So the first thing we're going to do is to subtract, or to deal with, the smaller x, okay? So we've either got 6x or 1x. So what we want to do, we want to get all our x's together, okay? They say don't put your eggs all in one basket. We want to do that with our x's, okay? We want them all together. So we're going to get rid of the smallest one. The reason we do that is so we don't end up with a horrible negative, okay? So we get rid of the smallest one. And this is a positive x. We don't write the positive sign, but it's positive. Now, if I'd written a negative sign, we'd know it was negative. So the fact that there isn't a negative sign in front of it means it's a plus, okay? So the inverse of that is to subtract x, okay? We want to get rid of it. And if we've got x, subtract x, we get 0. It's gone, hasn't it, okay? And then we just have to do the same to this side. So we're going to end up with, subtracting x off here, we're going to get 5x plus 12. It's not going to affect the plus 12. Equals, well, x subtract x, that's 0, but be really careful here because it's negative 13. That's really important you see that, okay? That's a negative 13. The sign belongs to whatever comes after it, okay? So just don't trip up with that. Now, let me just pop a little box around there so we know they're not part of what we're doing. That's just all kind of what we're working out with. Now, the next one, can you see now we're actually back to a two-step equation here. So let's see what we can do next. We kind of want to get the x's alone. We don't want to have all the numbers over here. We want to kind of start moving things over there. So x is multiplied by 5, and then we added 12. So the last thing that happened was we add 12. So we're going to deal with that by subtracting it, okay? Because that's the opposite of add. Subtract 12. So we're going to end up here 5x equals, now be really careful with your signs, I've picked quite a nasty one here actually to start you off on with this negative, but negative 13 subtract 12, so we're in a mixed temperature room and we're subtracting, we're taking out hot air, okay, because we're subtracting a positive number, which sounds really weird. I mean, the opposite would be to subtract a negative like that, so take away negative 12, which you do see sometimes. But let's get rid of that. But here we've got subtract our positive number, okay? So to take it away, think about we're taking away hot air. The room's going to get colder, so we go down the number line. So we're going all the way down to negative 25. Okay, and the last step, the opposite of multiply by 5, which is divide by 5. So we're going to get x, again careful with your signs here, equals negative 5. Okay? So that's that one done. Let's have a look at this one over here. This looks a little bit nicer actually. Should have started with this one. So we want to again get all of our x's together. Now I'm going to box off all my x's so I can see what I've got. Okay, now this is the smallest one, so we're going to use this one. This is one that's going to move. Okay, this is the smallest one. So instead of adding 4x, which is what we've got there, we're going to subtract 4x. I'm going to just write it once now on the side. Okay, as long as you know we do that to both sides, because it's starting to get a bit messy. So 9x subtract 4x is 5x, and we're left with the negative 15. That doesn't change. Equals, now this is why I put this one here, because a lot of people panic at this point, because we've got 4x, subtract 4x, it leaves us with 0, and people don't know what to do when a 0 comes into it. It is absolutely fine to have a 0. Okay, that's okay. That's what it is, isn't it? As long as you're following the rules, it's not wrong. So again, we're going to solve now. The inverse of subtract 15 is to add 15. So we get 5x equals 0, add 15, which is 15. It's a bit nicer, it's a bit more familiar now. And then the last one, the inverse of multiply by 5 is to divide by 5. So we get x equals 15 divided by 5, which is 3. Okay, so that's the first one of those. Well, there's 2 there, the first 2 of those. Okay, I've just got 2 more, just so you know you've got a few to kind of refer to if you're not sure on anything. Just means you've got something to look back at. So again here, let's just, now don't panic, because the x has come after the, we've not started with 6x add 15, it's the other way around. That's okay, it doesn't mean anything in particular. I just wanted to make sure you'd seen something like that. So again, we're going to get rid of the smallest x. Okay, so maybe write that down as a bit of a how-to really. Always get rid of the smallest x. Okay, deal with that one first. So the inverse of add 16, I should attach that to it really. Positive 16 is negative 16. Okay, I don't know why I've got 16, negative 6, sorry. So we're going to subtract 6x. Okay, so we get 15 on this side, because that's gone now, equals 45. And we've got 8 subtract 6, so plus 2x. Okay. Now the next line down, and we want to get rid of the 45 now. Okay. So we're going to subtract, because that's positive, because there's not a negative sign, so it has to be positive. It has to be one or the other. So subtract the 45. Okay, so be careful again here with your negatives. 15 subtract 45. So I might just put a little number line down here. Okay, just in case. My computer just made a very strange noise. I'm not sure why. So here's our 0, and what are we starting on? 15, which is there. And we're taking away 45, okay? So some people quite like to block these. So that's 15 there to get to 0. And then how many more to get to the 45 is 30. Okay, so we've got 30 here, because that makes 45. So we land on negative 30. So negative 30 equals 2x. And it doesn't matter that x is on the right hand side either. Some people are never sure about that. That's okay. As long as they equal each other, it doesn't matter which way we write it. We're very used to seeing the x on this side. It's a lot more common, but it's not wrong to write it the other way. It's perfectly fine. Okay, and then the last thing is the inverse of multiply by 2 is to divide by 2. So negative 13 divided by 2 is negative 15. 2x divided by 2 is x. Okay, so there's your answer. X equals negative 15. Now this last one here, this is one I really do want you to see. Okay, you need to pay really good attention to this, please. So I'm going to circle off my x's, but just watch carefully in my, well, I've done t's this time actually. It's the same thing, don't panic. Okay, but just look what I'm doing here. Okay, this is actually a negative one. And that's okay, just make sure you keep its sign with it. And this is a positive one. Now, when I say we take away the smaller number, okay, in this case, actually it works out well because 2 is smaller than 5. But just remember, we're actually looking at the smallest overall. So we're looking at, this is actually not 2, this is negative 2. Okay, so if, for example, we had, I'm just going to write these at the bottom here, look. If we had 2t and negative 5t, the smallest of the two numbers would be the negative 5t, okay, because negative 5 is smaller than 2. So just be careful there. When I say the smallest, I mean the one that really does go down the furthest. So if you've got negatives, just pay attention to them. Okay, so in this case, it's a negative 2t we're going to get rid of first. Okay, and we're going to do that by adding 2t, because that's the inverse. So add 2t. So we end up with 16 here. Equals, try and keep these as neat as you can, like in a nice neat line. 5t add 2t, that is 7t. 7t, not 7t. Add 9, that doesn't change. And please don't be tempted, folks, because I see it happen a lot, for people to start adding them together like this. Okay? And saying, well, that's 16t. Okay, that doesn't work. We can't add variables to numbers that are just all sitting on their own. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, so now the inverse of add 9 is to subtract 9. So 6 subtract 9. If you're not fast doing that in your head, don't worry, you could subtract 10 and add 1. Okay, which tells you it's 7. Equals 7t. And our last step is to get the t on its own is to divide by 7. So 7 divided by 7, don't slip up here, it's 1 equals t. Okay, so that's your final answer there. So that's everything I've got for you for today, okay? I'd watch this once, start doing your assignment that I've set for you, and then probably come back to this, okay? Because once you've started doing the work, you'll soon realise where you're not 100% sure on something, and then you can come back and watch this alongside. Okay, thank you, folks.